Have you ever seen one of those stories that just kind of blows up out of nowhere and you're just kind of like, what is even going on?
Yeah.
We're going to dive into one of those today. It's a really unexpected situation. Things develop so fast, and it's this crazy intersection of political power and, personal conduct.
Yeah, it's a wild one.
Really wild.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we are talking about the arrest and then very swift resignation of Minnesota State Senator Justin Eichorn.
Yeah, things moved really fast.
Extremely fast.
It's in this one.
Yeah, and that's really what we want to dive into today. So for you listening, we've got a bunch of different news reports and summaries and analyses that we've looked at, and we want to give you the rundown of exactly what went down. Why were there such immediate and strong consequences? And what does this mean for, Minnesota politics?
Absolutely. And just to be super clear, we're not here to speculate or anything. We're just trying to give you a really clear, concise overview of, what's going on based on the information that's out there.
Exactly. So let's get right into it. So this whole thing reportedly started with a sexting operation.
Oh, yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about how Senator Eichorn allegedly got involved?
Sure. So the Bloomington Police Department, working with the FBI, they were running this sting operation where they put up online ads.
Okay.
And the reports detail one ad in particular that used this tagline, "Come time with me." And it was, somebody posing as an 18-year-old.
So Senator Eichorn reportedly responded to one of these online solicitations.
Yeah.
And the reports about their text message exchanges seem to be a really big part of why things move so fast.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Like when you look at the timeline of these messages,
Yes.
the reports have pieced together, it's pretty concerning. So it seems like around March 11th, a phone number that's been identified as belonging to Senator Eichorn contacted the number from the ad and specifically asked if the girl was available that night.
Okay, so that was like the first contact.
Yeah, it looks like it was.
And then it just took off from there.
Yeah, by March 12th, he was asking about location and rates. The reports mention abbreviations like QV and HHR, and for those who don't know what those mean, we can break that down.
Yep.
So in the world of online,
Right.
solicitations for sexual encounters, QV usually means quick visit,
Yep.
so a short meeting. And then HHR is most likely the half-hour rate. So he was asking how much for 30 minutes, and then he's asking about their age, all this stuff. Seems pretty clear he was trying to arrange something.
Okay.
Interestingly enough, the undercover officer responded to him at that point and said she was 17 years old.
You would think that would be kind of a,
Yeah.
stop sign right there.
Yeah.
But the text reportedly kept going.
Right.
So then the next day, March 13th, he asked for a not pic, supposedly to confirm her identity.
Right.
And then after getting a picture, he asked for a lot less clothes.
Yeah.
That's a bit disturbing.
It is. And, he knew she was underage,
yeah.
but he kept going.
Right. And then by March 17th, the conversation got even more explicit.
Oh, yeah. Eichorn was asking about outcall rates, basically, if she would come to him. And then he straight up asked about the price for sex without a condom, using the term bear.
Okay. And it was then that the undercover officer again said that she was under 18.
Right.
So what did Senator Eichorn allegedly say to that?
Okay, so this is where things get really bad. And, like you said, this is a huge deal. According to what's been filed, when the officer said that she was 17 and wouldn't turn 18 until December, Eichorn said, it says age of consent is 16. And then he went on to say that being over 18 only really mattered if someone was in a position of authority like a teacher or a friend's parent.
Oh, wow.
It's really messed up because it just shows that he's either completely misunderstanding the law or just doesn't care.
Yeah, or both.
Right. It's really scary, and it just shows how serious this is.
Yeah, super disturbing. And the conversation continued. He agreed to meet up and even asked for a specific picture.
Yeah.
Bra and underwear, holding up two fingers
Right.
to verify her identity.
Right. Yeah, the FBI agent in the complaint actually pointed out that this kind of specific photo request is something that people who are, trying to pay for sex do a lot.
Oh, okay.
To make sure that the person they're meeting is actually the person from the profile.
Gotcha.
So anyway, all of this led to Monday, March 17th, at the meeting spot in Bloomington.
And that's when he was arrested. What did they find when they arrested him?
Well, the reports say they found 2 iPhones, an unopened Trojan condom, and $129 in cash in his car.
Oh,
So that kind of backs up,
right.
what they think was going to happen.
Yeah, it looks like there was a state charge at first, but then that was dropped pretty quickly for a federal charge.
Right. So at first they filed a state charge, but then the federal government came in with a felony charge of attempted coercion and enticement of a minor.
Okay, so why would they switch to a federal charge?
Well, the feds often get involved in these types of cases when you've got stuff like interstate communication going on, or if the federal laws have harsher penalties. So them going federal probably means they're taking this very seriously, and it could be a much bigger deal.
This all happened so fast, and the reaction from the political world was just as quick.
Yeah, for sure.
There were instant calls for Senator Eichorn's resignation from, it seems like, everyone.
What was really crazy was how both sides were totally united on this. Like within just a couple days of the arrest, you had Republican colleagues, the Minnesota State Republican Party, and the Senate DFL caucus all saying he had to resign. It was super clear that they all thought this was really bad.
And they weren't just talking about resigning. It sounds like the Senate Republicans were ready to do even more if he didn't step down on his own.
Exactly. Senator Johnson, the minority leader, said they were going to try and expel Senator Eichorn on Thursday if he didn't resign.
Wow.
He basically said it was the right thing to do for his family and the Senate, and that the charges and the reported texts were super damning. They were seriously considering expulsion, which would have been a huge deal in the Minnesota Senate. Like, it almost never happens.
Yeah, that's a big statement.
Definitely.
The Senate DFL caucus also said the allegations were horrifying and that they would have voted to expel him.
Yeah. Senator Erin Murphy from the DFL even said she was worried about the safety of legislative interns and staff.
Oh, wow.
She was basically saying that this kind of behavior just can't be tolerated in a workplace where people need to feel safe and respected. It's amazing that both parties were in total agreement that he needed to be removed. It really shows that they have the same standards for ethical behavior from their elected officials.
So in the end, they didn't need to expel him because Senator Eichorn resigned on Thursday morning. I remember his resignation letter being really short.
It was. He just said he needed to focus on some personal stuff and that it was an honor to serve in the Senate. His resignation was effective right then and there, so they didn't have to go through with the expulsion vote.
And then just hours later, he had his first court appearance.
Yeah.
So we went from allegations to an arrest to calls for resignation to an actual resignation and a court appearance in just a few days. That is crazy fast.
Yeah. It is, and it really shows you how seriously people take these kind of allegations, especially when it's someone in a position of power and trust.
So looking past this specific case, what do you think are some of the bigger implications? What does this tell us about politics today or what we expect from our elected officials?
Well, this really highlights how fragile public trust is, especially when it comes to elected officials. When someone in power is accused of something this bad, it can really damage people's faith, not only in that person, but in the whole system. People expect their representatives to be ethical and to follow the law, and this clearly goes against that.
It's also got to be super disruptive to the government's work, right?
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
hard to focus on policy discussions and passing laws
Right.
when something this serious is happening. All the attention and energy goes toward dealing with the fallout. So instead of working on important issues, they're stuck dealing with the consequences of this arrest and resignation. It can really slow things down.
But you could also argue that the quick and unified response from the police to both political parties is a good sign. Maybe it means there is a system in place to hold people accountable.
That's a really good point. The fact that there was a sting operation and then everyone condemned him and pressured him to resign does show that they're willing to take action no matter what party someone is from. It shows that there are ways to deal with these situations, both from the legal side and within the government itself.
And it's kind of wild that Senator Eichorn co-authored a bill about Trump derangement syndrome being a mental illness.
Yeah.
And now he's facing these really serious charges.
It's just weird how those two things go together. On the one hand, you have this guy trying to label certain political beliefs as mental illness, and on the other hand, he's accused of doing some pretty bad stuff himself.
Right.
It really makes you think about his priorities and judgment.
So even with this resignation, it seems like the balance of power in the Minnesota Senate hasn't changed.
That's right. His seat in Senate District 6 is empty. But the Democrats stay and have their one-seat majority. However, Governor Walz will need to call a special election to fill that seat, so it will affect that district in the short term.
And then there's also that situation with the DFL Senator, Nicole Mitchell,
Yeah.
who is facing those felony burglary charges. It sounds like the Senate DFL is saying those two situations are totally different.
Yeah. Senator Murphy said that the difference between the dispute with Senator Mitchell and this is night and day.
Wow.
So even though they've thought about expelling someone before, the stuff that Senator Eichorn is accused of was seen as way worse, so that's why everyone wanted him out immediately.
So for everyone listening, just to sum up, we've got a state senator who was caught in an FBI and local police sting. He's facing some very serious federal charges.
Yeah.
And there was a huge political backlash that led to his resignation. It's definitely shaken things up in Minnesota.
For sure. And it really makes you think about how much responsibility comes with being in a position of power and how closely people watch what you do. It's crazy how fast your reputation can be ruined if you're accused of something like this.
That's a really powerful point. I think this deep dive gives us a good look at how accountability works in our political system and how much impact one person's actions can have.
Yeah, it definitely makes you think about the long-term effects of this whole thing. Maybe it will make people want to learn more about ethics in government or how law enforcement keeps things in check.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for tuning in. We'll catch you next time on The Deep Dive.
See you later.
Bye-bye.